takes Ritter to the end zone, looking for Pierce. Did he hang on? Yes. Touchdown. Beat back as I've been around. Here he goes again. Busts free. Jerome Ford down the sideline. Foot race. House call. Touchdown. 79 yards. Big one in the Peach Bowl. This is a big one too. And it's going to go all the way to the house on the first play from scrimmage.
Bearcat Blitz, firing off a fresh episode to take you into the weekend here on the Believe Network. We are presented by FanDuel Sportsbook, and I'm your host, joined by my co-host very shortly. I'm Russ Eltman. Neil Meyer coming into the fold in just a few minutes. He, of course, covering Cincinnati Bearcats action over at the frontofficenews.com. And you can catch my work at Cincinnati Bearcats on SI, where you can also check out via the internet FanDuel Sportsbook and bet on the Bearcats to beat the Georgia Bulldogs this weekend. Cincinnati does not have any odds up right now for that game, but they should be there in the mid-afternoon to late afternoon time on Friday, and you can make your wager on what will likely be an underdog spot for the Bearcats traveling down to a neutral site, quote-unquote, game against Georgia, but there will be plenty of Bulldog fans there in Atlanta, just a short drive away from Athens. We'll touch on that game, of course, in this episode, and we're going to start with comments from Wes Miller following the loss to Xavier in the Crosstown shootout. A little bit less than a week to kind of internalize that and get his full-fledged thoughts on how the team can respond and get off the mat, so to speak, from here with a big quad one opportunity against Georgia. Update on Jalen Haynes' recovery mixed in there, as well as we kind of push off the bowl preparation talk until next week. We do have some transfer portal entries to discuss for the Cincinnati Bearcats football team, which we will do in this episode as well, including some impactful defensive back transfer news. All that coming up on this episode of Bearcat Blitz. Stick with us through these messages. Bringing Neil Meyer now from the frontofficenews.com. And we'll do a majority of basketball on today's show. But, Neil, we do need to start off with some of those transfer portal news and notes on the Cincinnati Bearcats football side of things, including, there's been some news scattered throughout the past few days, ever since our last episode on Monday. And we got some big news. We'll start on the player side and then get to the staff side as well. A bunch of guys have entered the portal so far, roughly 7 to 8 names in there. Most notably, Neil, and the only real starter that's entered the mix so far is Christian Harrison. Second most snaps on the defense last year at the safety position, had 66 tackles, 7 pass breakups, an interception, and 2.5 tackles for loss. 685 total snaps. Only Matthew McDoom played more in this defense, and now Cincinnati's going to have to find a replacement for him at a position and a player who I don't think anyone really expected to enter the portal and have thoughts about entering the portal this time around. Is one more year of eligibility left, transferred in from Tennessee last year, and seemed like he was really finding a strong kind of rhythm, thriving in this defensive system. And now, Neil, this defense was bad already, 107th nationally among FBS teams against FBS opponents in stop rate this season. And Christian Harrison was a big reason they weren't closer to the 120 range instead of the 100 range.
Yeah, Russ, this is obviously, there's been quite a few portal entries for Cincinnati, but this is the biggest one for Cincinnati because, let's be honest, I don't think anybody really anticipated Christian Harrison going into the portal. So, when you see a guy that's playing 700 snaps plus and was arguably one of your best defensive players throughout the season, I didn't anticipate him going in the portal, but I said it on Twitter the other day. I said when the post came out and I shared it, I said this is a huge loss for the Bearcats secondary, and everybody kind of was like, "Is it really though?" I mean, yes, it's a big blow for
Yeah,
Cincinnati's secondary.
it is. He was a near
And
70 overall PFF grade, completely stable. On top of that, he did that while playing almost 700 snaps. So Neil, that just goes to show how much trust Tyson Veit and this entire staff had in Christian Harrison. It wasn't like Tate and Barnes, where he also entered the transfer portal in the defensive back room, but he played only 185 snaps and was bad for the Bearcats. Christian Harrison was a high snap player and very not great, not necessarily very good, but solid to good. And you need as many of those guys as you can get when you're going to be losing Dante Corleone, Jake Golday, and some other key starters to just lack of eligibility or to the NFL.
yeah, and for me personally, this is where it's a could be a leadway to some of these discussions, Russ. But Christian Harrison was a guy who Cincinnati beat out multiple Power Four universities for this last transfer portal cycle, and that was a credit to strictly Jack Griffith. Jack Griffith did an amazing job with this transfer class, getting some of these guys here, and Christian Harrison did not leave Cincinnati without committing to Cincinnati after taking his visit. He didn't take any other visits, Russ. So, I mean, that's a testament to Jack Griffith and the job that they've done. But, I mean, this is a huge, huge loss for Cincinnati. 66 tackles, 40 of those being solo, 7 pass breakups, an interception, 2.5 tackles for loss. But, Russ, there was times where throughout the season, especially towards the back half of it, you, myself, a couple others of us in the press box and in the media, we kind of looked around and we're like, damn, Christian Harrison's flying around out there. And you can finally see him starting to get his footing in the 3-3-5. And he was a huge piece of that. But now that he's entering the portal, you see Kai Stokes in the transfer portal. He didn't really plan out as what many people anticipated him to being. Taden Barnes is probably just going to be one of those reserve guys coming to Cincinnati, obviously being undersized. But losing Christian Harrison is a huge, huge loss for this Bearcats secondary, not only for next year, but for the bowl game too. So, I mean, it's going to be hard to replace him. It really will.
Yeah, and the Navy is last I checked, they were a 1.5 point underdog to the Bearcats in this game coming up on January 2nd. And if my internet would work, there we go.
Russ, I'm fully locked in and loaded that
There we
Navy
go.
is going to be a favorite in this game when kickoff comes.
Well, then they are now, Neil. They've gone from 1.5 point underdogs to 4.5 point favorites
And that's a
over the
big
past
swing.
week.
That's a big
Massive
swing.
swing. And it's not just because of Christian Harrison. That gives me inkling, Neil, that the sports books are not anticipating Brendan Sorsby being on the field for the Bearcats if it's going to swing by 5 points that dramatically over the last week with no other major news really happening. They don't anticipate Brendan Sorsby playing in this game. You and I don't anticipate him playing in this game. We're still waiting on that news to come
And
down.
we'll find that out on Monday when we get the first bowl practice too. So for those wondering,
Right.
we do get media availability next week, Monday, Thursday, Friday, I believe, or Monday, Wednesday, Friday, something like that. But it's Russ. If it's me, I don't see him playing in that bowl game. I really don't. And with all the reports coming out there, the new landscape of college athletics, I don't see it. But I also don't see Dante Corleone playing in this game because he's already declared for the draft. There's a lot
Right.
of a
Right.
lot
To
of
swing
question
5
marks going
points,
on.
it's not just Brendan Sorsby. It's then him anticipating Brendan Sorsby on top of no Dante Corleone likely, no Jake Golday likely, and some other guys maybe not playing as well. There's
Russ,
likely to be some more surprises as well. I mean, Christian Harrison probably won't be the only one.
yeah, Russ, I'm fully anticipating this to be another 2022 Fenway Bowl with how
That's
many
what's
people.
just so brutal about this time in college football. It's like uh, yes, only a few teams can make the college football playoff, and we need to make it so that people can look forward to the postseason besides that, but there's no real reason to anymore. There really isn't. I mean, who is excited about seeing the shell of this 2025 Bearcats football team go to Memphis to get boat raced by a Navy team that I think Neil has won 6 of their past 7 bowl games? They don't have guys opt out. They don't have guys that transfer. They're going to have Blake Horvath, their record-setting quarterback. I mean, they care about these things at a higher level than most other college football programs because Navy isn't in it. to
and
win
and
college
Russ
football
too.
championships, really. They're in it for the love of the game and just kind of the pageantry of the sport more so than what all these other teams are now
It's
pursuing.
it's also worth noting Russ too, where I shouldn't be laughing, but it's like it's kind of hard to opt out of the Navy, right?
Right,
When
you're
you get there.
committing to serving your country.
Yeah,
You can't really opt out.
so there is no opt out for the Navies, and
Right.
Blake Newberry or Brian Newberry even said that he was like, yeah, opting out's not a thing here. That's because they legitimately cannot. So I
Right.
mean,
That's why they've won six of their whatever. It's either seven of their past eight or six of their past seven bowl games, and they're a wagon in that sense. So
and
four
Russ
and a
too,
half
like
points, that line, it might rise Neil all the way
it
up
might
past the
rise.
key number of seven. It might get to seven and a
And
half.
I,
I would not be
and
shocked.
I'm fully anticipating on that. And the reason I say that is because we mentioned opt outs, right? I personally, we don't know anything yet, but personally, right now, Jake Golday, a guy who's been banged up most of the back half of the
Makes
season,
zero sense for him to play in this
zero,
game.
he's going to be a day two draft pick. He's going to the Senior Bowl. Time to get healthy, get ready to perform in front of all those scouts and whatnot. Joe Royer has been healthy for majority of the season. The season hasn't gone as he has probably planned. I know a lot of people wanted him in the passing attack, but Russ, I'll be saying it right now. I mean, I personally, the numbers might have not stood out the table for Joe Royer in terms of receiving and all that aspect. But I'll tell you one thing he's done. He's arguably maybe raised his draft stock a little bit because he's been able to show that he's a pass blocker. And as a tight end, that's what you want, right? So you want those guys who can do both. But I mean, for those guys right now, I mean, let's be honest. Yeah, they love being here at Cincinnati. They love representing the Seapaw. But in the new landscape of college athletics, when you have that much money on the line right now, especially in terms of taking that next step for your career, making it to the NFL, it would be hard to see them play in this game, in my opinion. Now, we don't know anything yet, for sure, but that's where I'm leaning towards right now.
Wrapping up the football side of things here, and what's just been a chipper few weeks for the football team. I mean, how about this? Just a slow degradation from the win over Oklahoma State to now. Jack Griffith, speaking of degradation, staff degradation as well. Jack Griffith gone, Carter Wilson gone. They have taken promotions elsewhere. Congratulations to those guys for just doing a
Mhm.
stand-up job here at Cincinnati. Both did a really great job given the resources at their expense, and they've been a big reason why UC's added 2 wins each year of the Scott Satterfield era to the ledger. But they are off to greener pastures. Jack Griffith taking the assistant GM job at Penn State on Matt Campbell's staff, and then Carter Wilson heading over to South Florida and taking their general manager role, full-on general manager role down there in Tampa. Neil, just once again, going to make it even more difficult for the
Mhm.
Bearcats to find a way to top this season of 7 wins. The goal is to keep adding. The goal is to get to 8+ wins next year in the regular season. But if they don't have Brendan Sorsby, they don't have Dante Corleone, they don't have Jake Golday, and they have to replace the staffers that ultimately
Got
got
them
them
to
the
something.
majority of those guys outside of Dante Corleone, Scott Satterfield's done a nice job for the most part hiring staff, but those guys had all been with him the entire time coming over from Louisville, and now you have to deal with attacking the transfer portal while attacking filling those 2 roles and dealing with bowl prep. It's like at this point, Neil, you're really only playing in the game to get the money. The
Yep.
game doesn't matter. The game does not matter on January 2nd. The
That
goal for this
4.7 million.
right, the goal for this program is to get as good as you can for next season, and anything that happens in that game on January 2nd, it's honestly going to honestly can and probably should take a back burner to all of these staff hirings they have to make, and more importantly, all of the transfer portal additions they're going to have to make to fill in a litany of key roles now on this roster, from possibly quarterback all the way to linebacker, defensive tackle, defensive end, cornerback, safety. I
It's
mean,
going to
Neil,
be a
this
complete
entire
overhaul
roster
again.
needs a lot of work, basically everywhere outside of offensive line and maybe tight end.
Yeah, Russ, and you mentioned the staff promotions. I mean, two great guys in Carter Wilson and Jack Griffith. I
They
mean,
knocked
I've
it out of
had
the park, man. Knocked it out of the
yeah,
park here.
and I've gotten great pleasure to know them over the last 3 years. I mean, I don't think there was ever a time Jack wasn't watching the transfer portal or watching film. Same with Carter. I mean, those guys were legitimately always watching film. And I mean, you look at some of the talent. I mean, Jack Griffith played a key role Russ, and let's break it down. Brendan Sorsby, Jake Golday, Christian Harrison, Cyrus Allen. That's four of your top five players essentially from 2025. Jeff Caldwell, Jack Griffith played a huge part in getting him here. I mean, the list can go on and on, but
Joe
Jack Griffith
Cotton.
made,
I
yeah.
mean, Tawee Walker. So many guys. So
And I
many guys.
mean,
Terrence Io. You can
Jack
keep going.
Griffith was freaking fantastic. I mean, he was such a great human. And obviously, we saw Jack a little bit more because he was with those transfer portal guys. And I mean, Russ, we literally call him the transfer portal guru. Like, he is identified talent in the transfer portal. And I mean, you look at for a guy like Jake Golday, that's Jack Griffith right there. That is Jack Griffith's guy, essentially. I mean, you take a guy from Central Arkansas and you get him to potentially a day two draft pick from a guy that was playing D end and linebacker. You give him 2 years as a linebacker, and look what he did. So Jack Griffith played a huge role in that. Carter Wilson played a huge role in that. But I mean, for Cincinnati, Russ, it's huge because I mean, it's not only huge for those two guys taking the next step. But I mean, if you're a young, upcoming guy who wants to get into that field, I mean, who else better to learn to right now than Zach Grant? I mean, you look at the job Zach Grant's done. I mean, Jack's only, I believe, 30. Carter's only about 25. So, I mean, you look down right now, I mean, you got both of those two going off to be GM and assistant GM. I mean, you tip your cap to Scott Satterfield and them for bringing these guys into Cincinnati and developing and getting a lot of these guys, but you really got to tip your cap off to Zach Grant because I mean he's done a fantastic job as well, and it's kind of showing off now that you got a GM going to South Florida with arguably the best wide receiver coach and now first year head coach Brian Hartline, and then you have Jack going up to Penn State to be a assistant GM for a Big Ten school. So I mean overall Zach Grant deserves a lot of this credit as well to see those guys have the success that they're having.
Big few weeks for Zach Grant that got a little bit more busy with him trying to get some new lieutenants in the fold to be just as good. Not going to be easy. Not going to be easy to get guys that are just as good as Carter Wilson and Jack Griffith, but he and Scott Satterfield found him in the first place. So maybe they can strike oil once again. They're going to need to strike oil across this roster, especially if the anticipated news comes down over the next couple of weeks that Brendan Sorsby will be testing different waters and at least going into the transfer portal, if not declaring for the NFL draft. A lot to get to for the Cincinnati Bearcats football team over the next month. We'll keep an eye on that and keep touching on it throughout the next few weeks. Do a deeper bowl preview dive, probably week of the game when we get to that point in the calendar. Take a quick break here on Bearcat Blitz and then get to the basketball side of things. Speaking of that football matchup against Navy, you can bet on it through FanDuel Sportsbook, our great presenting sponsor, where Cincinnati has flipped from a 1.5-point favorite to a 4.5-point underdog, given all of the transfer portal news so far this week. You can do that on FanDuel Sportsbook, Cincinnati plus 152 on the betting line to win the third to last bowl game of the regular scheduled bowl season, the Liberty Bowl, on January 2nd, 2026 at 4:30 p.m. Eastern. Quick messages right here, and then we're back at it with the basketball side of things for the Bearcats. Winding down the show here with fresh comments, Neil, from Wes Miller on his basketball team. Finally, I was able to get to a midweek kind of non-post-game presser because it was scheduled in an afternoon window where I am not at the radio station. So I was able to fit that in yesterday. Good to hear from Wes, Baba, and Shon Abaev. Neil, kind of the two biggest things to touch on, I think, are Jalen Haynes working his way back very well. Appears he may be able to get back on the practice floor, if not in the next 2 weeks, around the new year, and possibly maybe get him some playing time in the conference slate. Now, I'm imagining that's going to maybe be the Bearcats may be a little reticent to do that because you'll be blowing his medical red shirt if they are to go do that. Wes Miller said on his radio show last night on Thursday that he would love to see Haynes still get another season of eligibility despite maybe playing this season, and they're going to apply for that even if he does end up playing. But something to monitor there. And we mentioned on Monday, we were joking, is the whole thing built out of Jalen Haynes. He's the only real key piece missing right now. And maybe, just maybe, the Bearcats could turn this whole thing around with him back in the fold, but that's still weeks, if not a month plus away.
Yeah, Russ, and the biggest thing I took away from the Jalen Haynes comments, it sounds like it's been a pretty incredible comeback from the injury. Obviously, we know the extent of the injury. We know it wasn't an ideal injury, to say the least. We know the extent of it, but to see him back, trying to get back out there, I mean, you would have loved to see him out there. But Russ, let's be honest, there's no point in him playing right now this year. Save the red shirt. Because if you're
If
2 weeks out,
if I were him, yeah, I wouldn't waste my red shirt. There's no
yeah,
way.
if you're 2 weeks out right now, where you're at, that's conference play. Before you're hitting the floor, that's conference play,
Right.
basically.
And we're talking about hitting the
But
floor in practice. So
yeah,
maybe
the
16th or 17th game of the schedule you can get back. Maybe that might be pretty
maybe, and
optimistic.
it would be pretty optimistic. And the reason why I say that is because you got to factor in the conditioning, you got to factor in the live ball action. Like this, it was a gnarly injury,
Right.
and
He
people
hasn't played 5-on-5 hoops. It'll be almost what,
he hasn't played 5-on-5 since
6 months?
October, since the injury happened.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it could
since
all
the
be all it'll be 5 months at least before he plays 5-on-5. 4 to
yeah,
five
he
months.
suffered the injury the first week of October. So I mean,
Yeah.
it essentially you're sitting at 2 months right now, 2 more weeks, New Year. So it definitely was a 3 month recovery time per se. But then you got to get him ramped up. Then you got to get him. How does he gel with this team? And Russ, that was something you and I brought up on the last show. Was that if this team was built around Jalen Haynes, we didn't think this team would be successful. Did we not say that?
Yeah, well,
And
that's what it's seeming like right now because they're six and
yeah,
three
and
and 6-3
and when you
without him.
And when you look right now, I mean, it just Wes Miller said it yesterday. Like, yes, he is the huge part of this team, but Russ, right now, I think there's a lot bigger issues than the front court. To be honest with you, yes they're missing a lot of pieces there, but there's a lot of things that aren't going well right now for this offense and this Cincinnati Bearcats basketball team that they're still trying to find answers to. But right now, if it's me, calling a spade a spade. If I'm Jalen Haynes, I'm not risking that red shirt. You get another year, you'll have 2 years of or you'll have 1 year of eligibility left. Take your red shirt. You're still getting paid regardless.
Right.
So I mean, you might as well take the red shirt and not risk anything because with how the NCAA moves and has kind of been acting towards these situations, to say the least. I mean, Connor Hickman was a great example of that. The moment that Jalen Haynes steps on that court after missing 4 months with an injury per se, if that is the timeline before his first game, the NCAA is going to not give him that extra year. You can
Yeah,
fight all you
how did
want.
it end up with Hickman? There was a big fight. I kind of
It
stopped
had to go to
following that.
court. He got a preliminary injunction, and basically they said you got 2 weeks before the next hearing, and that's where we're at. He's been
Okay,
playing.
so
He's
he's
been out of
playing under court order right now. That's the only
yeah.
reason
He's
he's on the
playing under
floor.
court order, and
Yeah,
we
see,
saw
I'm not
we
trying to
saw
mess
that.
with that.
Yeah,
Especially
we
Neil.
saw
I
that
mean, I hate to
firsthand,
say
and
it, but if I'm Jalen Haynes, seeing this team at 6-3 right now, and Wes Miller in year 5, like, am I going to be on the Bearcats next year? Am I going to be able to
Mhm.
come back to a Wes Miller led team next year? Is he going to be the head coach? It's all very, very murky right now. And they have to, moving to our next big point from the press conference, figure out some kind of offensive consistency over the next 3 weeks, or it's curtains on the Wes Miller era. Starting on Saturday, where it would be really, really beneficial for the Bearcats to find a way to get their first quad one win of the season and get to 7-3, because you fall to 6-4 with only one real solid opportunity to prove yourself over the next couple of weeks, and a scary, Neil, scary home matchup against Lipscomb coming up, a game that I
Alabama
wouldn't.
State.
Yeah, but I'm talking about Lipscomb. Like, they can beat Cincinnati the way that they're playing right now. It would not shock me if Cincinnati fell at home to Lipscomb with how inconsistent this offense is. And so that was the big talking point of how this week, Neil, they've been able to get more kind of cemented with their offensive adjustments that they've been trying to put in over the past couple of weeks. A little bit more concrete with that. Shon Abaev told us players are feeling a little bit more comfortable in their roles on the floor. But I mean, Neil, it doesn't matter how comfortable you're feeling your roles on the floor. You're shooting 62% on close twos. You've missed 5 dunks so far this season, and you're shooting 63% from free throw line and less than 30 or less than 33% from deep. Uh, Rolls and comfortability and all that stuff. Bottom line, these guys just got to put the rock in the hoop. And that was the big reason I asked that question yesterday of just like, is it just a mental block? Is it just in the moment thing where something is going wrong? Like, it's hard to explain why these teams under Wes Miller on these wide open shots can't consistently get them to go in more often, but they aren't going in often enough, and it's led them to lose these 3-4 possession games in these big moments on their 3 losses. And they can't explain it. They really couldn't explain it yesterday. It's really, Baba Miller said, like, yeah, it's just you have to execute in the moment. There's no other explaining it. When the fire is raging, you can't miss these shots. But I mean, I don't know what else they could do, Neil. Like, I really
Stop
don't.
shooting threes.
I mean,
That's the big thing. That's where the
maybe,
big
but
thing.
they can't get good looks at the rim, and they're
Mhm.
shooting way too many long twos this season. When you look at the stats right now, Cincinnati shooting 37.5% on long twos, which is basically right at average to below average. They've taken 104 long twos and 171 shots at the rim. I mean, that's just not good enough. Not even close to good enough. And you got to get, like you mentioned, you got to get a little bit more efficient there. But who's going to get there? Who is it? Who is showing the ability to run offense and get into the paint and be able to threaten that defense? I asked Wes Miller the topic that we talked about on Monday. Why is Kirk Kriesa shooting double the percentage of shots from deep in his overall shot diet than he ever has in this entire career? And what did he answer with, Neil? He basically just said the entire team has to get more shots near the rim, and we got to do a better job of that in general. So it doesn't seem like, Neil, that's their strategy for Kerr. It's just kind of what's happening, and that's kind of just the theme of the whole offense. It's just kind of what's happening. And that can't happen on Saturday against Georgia because they not only have the highest scoring offense in the country at 99.9 points per game, but it's top 25 in efficiency to go with that. They force a ton of turnovers and they play good defense on the other end and have all 11 rotation players, Neil, averaging at least 2.3 or 2.5 rebounds per game. So they gang rebounds as well as any other team in the nation, one of the top rebounding outfits in the country. If UC gets out rebounded in this game, Neil, they may get blown out by 25.
Yeah. And the biggest thing to take away too, Russ, I know I said this last night on the Bearcat Tip Off Talk podcast. Cincinnati's got to find ways to get and attack the rim. I mean, Cincinnati, like Russ, let's talk about it, right? You look down at Cincinnati's 2 guards, Day Thomas, Kirk Kriisa. You throw Shon Tillery in there as well. He's undersized. You know what I really wish one of these guards would have? It's not the most ideal shot, but if you're an undersized guard in this game now, you have to develop a floater. You just
Yeah, they
have
don't have
to.
anybody
You
that
don't,
can
they
hit a
don't have
floater.
any of that. They haven't had anybody who could knock down a floater, and this is the
Neil,
reason why.
guess how many close 2-point shots Kirk Kriesa and Day Thomas, your top 2 ball handlers, have taken this season. Close
I'm gonna
2-point shots.
I'm gonna say under 10.
21 total. 21 total for through 9 games from 2 players that are your lead ball handlers and one of your top usage players. Yeah, 21% from Day Thomas and 22 or 17.2% from Kirk Kriesa. Like, my
They got
oh
to
my.
find ways to get to the rim. I mean, 2 guards are undersized. Yes, Day Thomas has been playing the best ball of his career. We have seen that. But if you're Kirk Kriisa at this point, you got to find ways to get downhill and attack because the 3 ball is not working. Yes, that might be what your shot diet has been, but Cincinnati, you have to start getting downhill and attacking and playing with some tempo and getting to the rack. Because if you can get to the rack, you can foul hunt, you can contact hunt, you can get to the line. Russ, I mean, despite them shooting 50% from the free throw line essentially this season, if you can just make an adjustment in getting to the line, the more times you get to the line, if you're going to get 30 to 35 free throws a game, you're going to win ball games. You will. But the live and die by the 3 ball, you stagger your offense, you run around the perimeter like a game of tag, it's not gonna go anywhere. It's
Right. And
not.
and
You
there's
got
just there's no penetrating aspect of this offense
There's
in the
no
half
cutters,
court.
there's no
Right.
backdoor cuts, and there's no
Baba
slashing.
Miller's
There's
the only
nothing.
guy who does that stuff. I don't get it. Shon Abaev would be a great cutter if he would do it more often. Same with Day Thomas off the ball. I mean, Kirk Kriesa, we don't see him do much of. He moves around a little bit, but it's almost always all around the 3-point line. It's all around the 3-point line, and then the thought process is, hey, let's play through Mustafa Cham, but he doesn't seem to want to patiently work off the elbow, let things happen around him, and then find cutters that way. He quickly takes shots and gets rid of the ball very fast when he touches the basketball. So, I mean,
Russ,
there's there's
let me
there's
ask you.
there's clear kind of hierarchy issues in this offense, and it goes back to the preseason, Neil, of
Mhm.
not knowing who that killer is gonna be in the final 5 minutes of crunch time when you need a bucket. It hasn't been Shon Abaev enough this season, and he's not a really reliable crunch time player right now because when you foul him, he doesn't hit free throws. 17 for 27 on free throws this season. That's not even close to good enough from a guy who was kind of portrayed as a 40+% 3-point sniper coming into his UC tenure at what, 6'9". You'd think he'd be able to hit better than 60 whatever percent that is, 63%, which is exactly the total team wide that UC is shooting, 350th nationally.
Russ, let me ask you, heading into this Georgia matchup, you mentioned Mustafa Cham, and I just want to get your opinion, not trying to stir the pot or anything. What do you think Samto Cyril is going to do on Saturday? Because, I mean, that's a big boy. We've seen him throughout his highlights at OTE. I mean, there's a good chance that Samto goes in there and sets the tone early and gets pretty physical. And if that's the case, I mean, does Cincinnati really have an answer for that right now in the interior? So I'm just curious to see
He's
what your
carrying about
thoughts
what,
are.
30 pounds on Sham. That's going to be an interesting battle to start because Neil, I mean, Georgia thrives on 2-point shots. 12th most made 2-point buckets in the country so far this season. They're shooting 65% from two. 65% overall from 2-point range. Samto Cyril, a big reason for that. I mean, I don't have any reason to think he's not going to win that matchup with how well he's been playing
Mhm.
and the size that he's bringing to the table here. You look at him, he's shooting, Neil, 74.4% this season.
Right.
Yet to take a three, obviously, with that good of a
I mean, they
number,
don't
but
need him to when you got
right,
Jalen or Jamar Wilkinson, Jeremiah
right.
Wilkerson, who's
And I mean, Cyril's not even the guy you got to worry about on the interior. And when you think about the 2-point acumen of this Georgia team, Wilkinson, one of the best drivers and attackers of the rim in the country, and same with Blue Kane, who is shooting, Neil, 72.1% from 2-point range. I mean, this is a brutal, tough matchup. I would be stunned if the Bearcats won this basketball game tomorrow, given how well Georgia is playing. They're 24th nationally on KenPom, likely will be ranked in the AP poll next week if they win this game and move to 9-1 overall. It's just too good of an offense, Neil, for me to think that Cincinnati's offense is going to rise to the occasion enough and be able to consistently keep up with this team enough, especially given I know the turnovers cleaned up a little bit against Xavier, but Xavier is not even close to the defensive talent level, athleticism that Georgia is bringing to the table here, led by Jeremiah Wilkinson, who is playing lights out ball right now and averaging, what is he at, 3 or 4.1 steals per 40 minutes. Blue Kane at 3 steals per 40 minutes overall this season. They are at 2.3 and 1.9 steals respectively. They turn the teams over at nauseum, Neil, 8th in the country with 11.1 steals per game as a team, 8.8 blocks. I mean, the size, the hounding here is going to be too much for Cincinnati to make me think that they're going to keep the turnovers in the 9 to 12 range that they need to. I think they get closer to what opponents have averaged against Georgia, which is 17.2, 11th highest in the country so far this season. This is a really tough matchup for Cincinnati that I see them dropping 86 to 78. What do you got in this game, Neil?
yeah, right now, Russ, I don't think there's a way you can realistically say Cincinnati wins this game. And I believe it's going to be a high scoring game, like you mentioned. I'm not sure what the over under is set at, but there's a good chance Georgia puts up 90 tomorrow. There's a very good chance. But like you said, I'm going with Georgia here. I'm going to go 84 to 68 in favor of the Bulldogs here. I just don't think Cincinnati's offense is quite there yet. But I would love to be proved wrong, but
Yeah, we'd love to talk about a win on Monday. That'd be great.
I'm going 84-68.
Wow, you got them blowing them out. I mean, yeah, I wouldn't be shocked. I mean, if they don't,
And that's just because too, the reason I say that is, I mean, Georgia's just so relentless on the defensive end. I mean, they
yeah,
are going to pressure you on a made basket every time.
every
And
time.
Cincinnati struggled versus Xavier beating a press and whatnot. I mean, they struggled with Eastern Michigan when they brought a press. So I mean, right now, like where I'm leaning, I do think this could be a 12 to 14 point victory in favor of Georgia. I really do.
We'll see what that betting line looks like, but likely from our stance, probably would take the Georgia Bulldogs on the spread line when that drops later on this Friday afternoon. For Neil Meyer, I'm Russ Heltman. Got a rough result predicted against Georgia, and we will mention they are a solid defensive team at that, 44th nationally in overall defensive rating. That offense from UC is just sticking out like a sore thumb in this quad one battle. For Neil Meyer, I'm Russ Heltman. This has been Bearcat Blitz on the Believe Network, presented by FanDuel Sportsbook. Have a great weekend, everybody.
6, Ritter to the end zone, looking for Pierce. Did he hang on? Yes. Touchdown. Back as I've been around. Here he goes again. Busts free. Jerome Ford down the sideline. Foot race. House call. Touchdown. 79 yards. Big one in the Peach Bowl. This is a big one, too. And it's going to go all the way to the house on the first play